In my previous life, the plane I was on unfortunately crashed. My best friend Lynn was seriously injured. My boyfriend proposed to leave her behind. I couldn't bear it and carried her on my back and walked dozens of kilometers in the ice and snow. Just when we were less than 10 meters away from the shelter. Exhausted, I finally fell. My boyfriend picked up my best friend and turned to me and said, "Serafina, I'll send Lynn in first, and then come back to pick you up." But I didn't wait for him until I was frozen to death. After death, my soul floated into the wooden house. I saw Lynn snuggling in Leo's arms. "Brother Leo, you are so smart. You not only saved my life, but also preserved your own strength and got rid of that annoying Serafina." Only then did I understand how stupid I was back then. In this life, when my boyfriend proposed to leave my best friend in the snow, I agreed without hesitation. In my previous life, the plane I was on crashed on an uninhabited snowfield. Only 5 of our friends survived the entire plane. But my best friend Lynn's leg was injured and she couldn't walk at all. Fortunately, my boyfriend Leo is a pediatrician and knows some first aid knowledge. After simply bandaging Lynn's leg, he proposed that we all walk south. The place where the plane crashed is north of a certain latitude. Obviously, it is almost impossible for people to walk from the frigid zone to the temperate zone on foot. But there is currently no other way. After all, it is the safest for everyone to walk in one direction. Just then, my boyfriend Leo, who has always regarded saving lives and helping the wounded as his duty, actually proposed to leave my injured best friend Lynn behind and let the 4 of us continue to look for shelter. After finding helpers, we would come back and take Lynn away. I immediately refuted Leo's callous proposal. But he said, "Serafina, don't be willful. This is a matter of life and death. It's already -20 smiting degrees even during the day. If we can't find a place to keep warm before nightfall, all of us will die here." My heart sank. But I also knew that Leo was right. We had just rummaged through the belongings of the dead by the plane and found a few clothes that could barely keep us warm. But in this ice and snow, it is obviously not enough. For example, my shoes are ordinary single-layer sneakers and have no warming effect at all. My toes are already freezing and hurting. Leo has no hat or long hair to cover him. And his ears are almost frozen off. Even we healthy people are like this. Once the injured Lynn is abandoned, it means waiting for death in the ice and snow. If it were me in my previous life, listening to Lynn's pain and seeing her pleading eyes, I definitely couldn't bear to refuse. But having experienced it once, I already know that Leo and Lynn have been secretly having an affair behind my back. Leo said this because he knows my temper too well. In most cases, when there is an injured person in the team, and this injured person is a delicate little girl, it is usually the tall boy in the team who takes on the responsibility of taking care of her. Although Leo has an affair with Lynn, out of selfish nature, he is unwilling to lend a helping hand. He winked at Lynn behind my back. Lynn immediately understood his meaning and began to attack me. In my previous life, it was at this time that I softened my heart. Despite my own precarious situation, I endured the pressure of everyone saying that the 2 of us were holding them back and carried Lynn on my back all the way stupidly. In such cold and dry air, breathing in is like being cut by a knife, which is extremely uncomfortable, especially when there is a person who is less than 10 pounds lighter than me on my back. My breathing becomes more and more violent and heavy, and the pain becomes more and more obvious. But I still gritted my teeth and endured it. Until after walking for an unknown amount of time, Gary, the boy who was walking with us, found a small wooden house in the distance. He cheered excitedly. "Look, there is a house ahead. If there is a house, there must be people. Come on. Everyone hold on. Persistence is victory." At this time, Leo, who had been walking in front and ignoring how hard and uncomfortable I was, suddenly stopped and waited for me. I thought that because hope was so close, he no longer thought Lynn was a burden. Therefore, his conscience was not completely lost, and he was finally willing to lend a helping hand. But who would have thought that he would be more of a hindrance than a help? When he turned around and took Lynn from my back, he accidentally stepped on my foot. And it was this step that became the last straw that broke the camel's back. After walking in the snowfield for so long, my sneakers were already icy cold, and my toes were showing a tendency to freeze off. Leo's step just happened to be in a crucial position. Suddenly, my toe broke off, making me so painful that I couldn't stand up at all, especially since my physical strength had been exhausted all the way. I had been relying on the belief that there are 2 lives on me, to hold on. To put it bluntly, I was just holding on with one breath. Now this breath was suddenly interrupted, and I fell in the snow again because the pain from the injury was too great. When I recovered and wanted to get up again, I found that I couldn't do it at all. Before Leo left with Lynn on his back, he said to me, "Serafina, you are much heavier than Lynn. Wait for me to carry her to the wooden house. After I recover a bit of strength, I will come out and pick you up immediately." Heavy? Although I am 10 centimeters taller than Lynn, I am only 6 or 7 pounds heavier. And now, my boyfriend chooses to save someone else first because his girlfriend is 6 or 7 pounds heavier than another girl. It's a lie to say that there is no discomfort in my heart. But my upbringing since childhood tells me that when in danger, let the weak go first. Lynn is injured and has always had poor physical strength. She can also be considered weak. It is right for Leo to take her away first. I comforted myself like this in my heart. But what I didn't expect was that Leo never came back after leaving. I was frozen to death on the snowfield like this. Later, the rescue team came and found the 4 people in the wooden house. They sighed that it was a miracle and rescued them. I don't know if it was because of the special environment of the snowfield, but my soul actually remained beside my body when I saw them being rescued. Leo held Lynn in his arms and comforted her softly. That expression and tone were more like a couple than when he was with me before. Lynn snuggled in Leo's arms and whispered, "Brother Leo, you are so smart. You not only saved my life but also preserved your own strength and got rid of that annoying Serafina. It turned out to be like this." I was struck by lightning immediately. But Leo looked smug. "Yes. Otherwise how could I make room for you?" The captain of the rescue team had extraordinary hearing and actually heard the whispers of this immoral couple. He glared back at them, and immediately gave an order. "Search again to see if there are any survivors missed." Lynn complained. "Oh. What are you still looking for? Let's go quickly. It's so cold in this snowfield. Except for the wooden house. Where else could there be people alive?" "Captain, there is still one person here. A nimble team member found me. Alas. It's a pity. The body has already stiffened. She should have been gone for some time." The team leader came towards me, ignoring Lynn and Leo's repeated exclamations of bad luck. He took my body back to my hometown. Thinking of this, I am grateful to God in my heart for giving me a chance to be reborn. Facing Leo's words that are exactly the same as in my previous life. This time I nodded in agreement quite reasonably. Indeed. This may be the best way. As soon as I said this, the frozen air instantly became even quieter. "Serafina, what did you say?" Lynn sat on the ground and looked up at me in disbelief. "Otherwise, we can't find a better way. What do you think?" I no longer foolishly take all the responsibility on myself but throw the problem back to them. The 4 people looked at each other in dismay and were silent for a while. Needless to say, Leo and Lynn are in the same group. Gary and Stacy are good friends called by Lynn. Speaking of which, among the 5 of us, I am the only real outsider. The relationships between the other 3 and Lynn are closer than mine. There is no reason to insist on relying on me alone. But I still underestimated Lynn's thick skin. "Serafina, I didn't expect you to be such a selfish person. Now that my foot is injured like this, are you going to leave me alone and let me wait here to die?" I diverted the blame. "Hey, this wasn't my suggestion. You just heard it too. I also think Leo's suggestion is cold and heartless. But it does make some sense. Well, the two of us don't count. Let's have a show of hands among the four of us. Should we take Lynn with us or leave her here? By the way, Leo and I don't need to raise our hands. We have already expressed our opinions. Gary. Stacy. What do you think? Now the situation is very obvious. Among the four people, two already disagree with taking Lynn. As long as one of Gary and Stacy says not to take Lynn, she will be left here. If they both agree to take Lynn, it will be a tie of 2-2. But this physical work must be done by those who propose taking her. Naturally, it won't be me and Leo. Lynn cast her expectant gaze at Gary and Stacy again. Their gazes began to dodge unnaturally. Otherwise, let's do as Leo said. After all, there really is no better way. I quickly added. Yes. Fortunately, Leo is assertive and can make decisions. Otherwise, if we keep hesitating here, it will be a waste of time. Hearing this, Lynn immediately cast a dissatisfied gaze at Leo. Yes. If it weren't for his bad idea, everyone wouldn't have decided to give up on her so quickly. Feeling the pressure of Lynn's gaze, Leo began to be torn again. Serafina, let's take Lynn with us. I pretended to be puzzled. Didn't you just think Lynn was a burden? He was a little displeased. I just didn't accept the reality of the plane crash for a moment. So I was a little out of control, but I didn't expect you all to be so cold-blooded and actually refuse to save her. In short, we can't leave Lynn alone here. He then said to me, Serafina, do you really have the heart to let your best friend wait in the snow to die? Facing Leo's temptation, I just didn't take a stand. Instead, I innocently said, in special times, we must consider the overall situation. Of course, I can't just follow my own idea. Leo and Lynn were so angry that they almost vomited blood. But this is not the time when they are exhausted and on the verge of life and death. Therefore, their sense of shame has not been extinguished, and they can't directly ask me to carry Lynn. After all, the two men present are both 1.8 meters tall and work out all year round. I'm afraid they themselves are ashamed to directly say what's on their minds. Seeing that I am a tough nut to crack, Leo looked at Gary again. Gary, what do you think? This is to let Gary make the decision. The person who finally makes the decision to abandon Lynn will definitely bear the greatest psychological pressure and sense of guilt. Similarly, the person who finally makes the decision to take Lynn will inevitably bear the greatest amount of labor. Gary let out an unhappy snort. Didn't you just say you don't care about Lynn? Why are you pretending to be a good person now? If you've changed your mind and want to take Lynn with you, just carry her on your back. No one will persuade you to put her down. There's no need to discuss it with us. Leo and Lynn glared at Gary resentfully upon hearing this. Wishing they could stare a hole in him, I gave Gary a thumbs up in my heart. If I could be as slippery as him in my previous life, I wouldn't have been so miserably victimized. Gary is not helpful. But Stacy does have some true feelings for Lynn. She hesitated and said, Gary, Lynn has been our friend for so many years. How can we just give up on her so easily? Leo. Serafina. Shall we still take Lynn with us? Leo immediately replied. I agree. I was just feeling guilty. You two are such good friends with Lynn. If you abandon her just because of my words, I will look down on myself. The meaning in Leo's words is that he wants to push Lynn to me and Stacy again. But I didn't give Leo a chance. Smiling, I took off the school bag full of food on his back. Why would it be like that? Leo, in such harsh conditions, you are still willing to take Lynn with you. You are a hero in my eyes. I put Leo's bag on my back and cheered him on in a shrill voice. Come on, Leo. Lynn is a bit lighter than me. Since you can carry me, carrying her must be even easier. In the end, Leo, who was in a dilemma, had no choice but to carry Lynn on his back. In fact, I also thought about whether to leave Lynn here to wait for death, like I did in my previous life. But on second thought, It would be too easy for Leo that way. I want to see if this time without me. The silly one who does all the hard work. Can the two adulterers still wait for rescue affectionately? I don't know if Leo is really strong on the outside, but weak on the inside or intentionally shirking. He stopped when he walked halfway along the path I took in my previous life. After putting Lynn down, he panted and said, "No way. Serafina. Come and switch." Huh. Among the 4 people here, he only looks for me. Acting? Who can't do it? I pretended to misunderstand Leo's meaning, and excitedly ran towards him. Finally, it's my turn. Leo. You are so kind. How did you know I can't walk anymore? I jumped and climbed onto Leo's back. Caught off guard. He was pulled to the ground by me. Serafina. What are you doing? Leo was very angry, but his voice was very low. I guess he, like me in my previous life, has already run out of strength to even speak. I pouted innocently. Didn't you say it's my turn? I thought after you carried someone else for so long, you finally remembered to carry your own girlfriend. Isn't it? Lynn was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Brother Leo meant for you to carry me. This way. Then I understood it wrongly. But what should we do now? Leo just lost his balance. When I fell off his back, I sprained my ankle. I looked at Leo helplessly. You can only continue to carry Lynn on your back. After saying that, I stood up directly and pretended to limp away, leaving Lynn and Leo behind. I don't know how long I walked. The sky is getting dark, but there is still no sign of the cabin. It seems that Leo's physical strength is still not as good as mine in my previous life. His slow speed has also aroused Gary's dissatisfaction. Leo. This won't do. We are walking too slowly. Just as you said before. Let's put Lynn here first. We will come back to pick her up later when we have recovered. Lynn's frostbite on her hands and feet is more serious than that of us who are walking because she hasn't moved her limbs for a long time. In addition, boys are not as careful as I was in my previous life when carrying people. They swing Lynn's injured leg around all the way. So although she didn't walk, her leg injury became even more serious. I sneered in my heart. In my previous life, when I carried Lynn on my back, I did my best for fear that she might be injured somewhere. But she was like a young lady. Sometimes she said that I walked too fast and her leg hurt. Sometimes she said that I walked too slowly and couldn't find a place to stay even when it got dark. In the end, I carried her to a place just one step away from survival. But she left me in the ice and snow. Unexpectedly. This time it was Leo who carried her. And she didn't even dare to let out a fart. Leo still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Gary. If you still want to carry Lynn, of course we won't stop you. But you can carry her slowly and chase the main group behind by yourself. We can't wait any longer. After saying that, he looked up at the sky. At this time, the sky was almost completely dark. The vast and uninhabited snowfield was completely silent, as if there was never an exit. The piercing northwest wind made the skin on everyone's face crack. I couldn't help shivering. To everyone's surprise, this time, I still chose to carry Lynn on my back. My physical strength is still preserved well and I won't drag down the main group. Lynn was moved. Serafina, you are my best friend. I didn't answer but proposed. But I have one condition. I'm afraid of falling behind while carrying Lynn. I want to walk in the middle. A group of people were originally all Lynn's friends. Putting her down was also a last resort. Now seeing that I am willing to accompany her without delaying the progress. Naturally everyone agreed. With the experience of my previous life, I walked much faster than Leo while carrying Lynn. Suddenly, Leo's impatient voice came from the very back. What's wrong? Stacy? Don't you also want me to carry you? I tell you, I don't have any strength left. Stacy behind me was puzzled. Leo, what are you talking about? I didn't say I want you to carry me. Leo was shocked. Stacy, weren't you behind me? When did you run in front of me? Then who was the person who patted me on the back just now? Don't turn back. Leo. Don't turn back. Gary. Who was walking in the front? Exclaimed in horror. You remember. Leo. You mustn't turn back. Let's walk faster. Gary, who has always been calm and unrestrained, even had a trembling voice. His emotion also spread to each of us. On this gradually darkening vast snowfield, any unfavorable change can crush our fragile nerves. Leo almost said with a crying voice. Gary, why can't I turn back? What do you mean by your words? What's behind me? Gary didn't answer. Don't worry about it. Anyway, just walk faster. Remember not to turn back. Also try not to hunch over, and don't run. Hearing this, my mind buzzed and I knew I had that right. When I was a child, I heard some legends that bears in the wild are very smart and might imitate human behavior. When it is not bright enough or there is heavy fog, they will wear cow dung on their heads, stand on two legs, wave to people to say hello, and pretend to be villagers wearing felt hats to attract humans. Sometimes, bears even knock on doors like humans or pat people on the shoulder gently from behind. If a person who is patted on the shoulder turns back without noticing, the bear will bite his neck immediately. Thinking of this, a chill rose from the bottom of my heart, and dense sweat oozed out on my back. Gary is in the first place. I am in the second place, followed by Stacy and Leo. If Leo is eaten by a bear, then it will be Stacy next, followed by Lynn and me. This is the real purpose of me carrying Lynn on my back. In my previous life, Leo and several others were all in the cabin. They didn't know at all that they had narrowly escaped death. At that time, not long after I was frozen to death and my soul was still floating beside my body, I saw a bear sniff me from head to toe. But I couldn't move, and my attraction to the bear was limited. So it didn't eat me immediately. It just buried me deeper in the snow with its thick paws. I guess it should have more desirable food. It just regarded me as an alternative similar to compressed biscuits. So it covered me with snow to prevent other beasts from finding me. At this moment, I am carrying Lynn on my back, in case a bear or other wild animals attack me. Lynn, who can't run far and isn't completely dead, should be more attractive than me. I can use her as a shield to seek a chance of survival. The steps of the four of us kept speeding up. If you listen carefully, you can still hear footsteps that are more chaotic and heavier than those of humans. This further confirms my guess in my heart. I can't help swallowing nervously in fear. What should we do? Gary. I feel it's still following me. Before Gary could answer, Leo immediately screamed in horror. Ah! It's pulling at me with its hand. Save me. I don't want to die. Wait for me. Serafina. Don't walk so fast. Wait for me. Leo was mumbling behind. We all tacitly didn't answer but walked faster and faster. Obviously, he wanted to find someone to be his scapegoat. Serafina. Wait for me. Wait for me. Or at least you put Lynn down. Right. You can't walk fast while carrying Lynn. Put her on the ground, and I'll do it. Hearing this, Lynn immediately had a crying voice and begged in a low voice in my ear. Serafina. Don't put me down. Please. I don't want to die. I sneered in my heart. I thought Leo and Lynn had such a deep relationship. But it turns out they are just like everyone else who abandon each other in a disaster. Seeing that I didn't move, Leo started to increase the stakes. You don't want to put Lynn down. Isn't it because you still think she is your good best friend? Don't you know what she has done behind your back? Leo. Lynn shouted angrily. Are you afraid now? You were very brave when you seduced me. Leo's voice was a bit ferocious. Serafina. Don't listen to him. Leo is crazy. He wants to find a scapegoat, so he is deceiving you. There is nothing between me and him. No one is deceiving you. Serafina. I can give you my phone. There are chat records with Lynn in it. Before we could reply, Leo exclaimed again. It hurts so much. It's biting me. If this goes on, Will it eat me? This seems to be a bear. It's all your fault. Lynn. If you hadn't said you wanted to travel abroad, and I couldn't get rid of Serafina, none of us would have come out for a trip. So that's how it is. Leo had told me earlier that he wanted to travel abroad with me. But he was worried about the persecurity abroad, and that it wouldn't be safe for just 2 people. So he invited a few friends. Unexpectedly. It was all for Lynn. You all wait for me. Serafina, don't walk so fast. I'm your boyfriend. I, who was mentioned, silently quickened my pace. What a joke. There's no way I would wait for him. Leo's voice began to pant violently, as if he was running. From the front came Gary's extremely terrified voice. Don't run, Leo. Don't run. But it was already too late. Because Leo was too scared and wanted to jog a few steps to be side by side with Stacy. But his running action completely triggered the beast's hunting instinct. The bear that had been following Leo without attacking finally couldn't resist pouncing and starting to bite. Behind us. Leo's screams kept coming. Help me. It's eating my leg. We could only continue to walk quickly forward. At the same time, I quietly looked back. It was hard to see clearly at night. I just felt that there seemed to be red liquid splashing faintly in the snow. At first, Leo begged and pleaded. Seeing that we didn't respond, he began to curse. Serafina. Gary. Do you think you can escape by leaving me alone? How could you run faster than a bear? Almost at the same time, Gary, who was walking at the front, suddenly paused. Look. What's that? In the darkness, it was hard to see clearly with the flashlight. But according to my past life experience, I know that we have reached the wooden cabin of my past life. It seems to be a house. Stacy exclaimed in surprise. The crisis of the bear-eating people behind us hadn't been resolved yet, so we couldn't help but quicken our pace. The moment the wooden door was closed, Leo's screams were cut off. But we didn't dare to relax for a moment. The footprints in the snow were so obvious. The human smell was so strong. The bear was so cunning. And there wasn't much food on the snowfield. After the bear finished eating Leo, it would definitely find this place soon. I looked up at this wooden cabin. It was completely made of wood structure. It could only guard against gentlemen, not villains, let alone guard against bears. Foreigners are really unreliable in building houses. Only cement and steel can give people a sense of security. Thinking of this, we decided that we couldn't just wait for death. We had to take the initiative. Bears are afraid of fire, loud noises, and unknown or taller things than them. We searched all over the wooden cabin, but only found a shovel and a mop that could barely be used for self-defense. But these things seemed a bit ridiculous in front of an adult bear. Stacy continued to search in the room. Suddenly, she found a switch and pressed it out of curiosity. In an instant, the snow in front of the house was completely illuminated. Coupled with the reflection of light by the snow, there was an illusion that the sky suddenly became bright. This sudden change also startled the bear that was eating happily. The fat figure covered in black fur ran away without looking back. After confirming that the bear had no intention of coming back, the 3 of us finally summoned up the courage to go out and check on Leo's situation. Speaking of which, this bear is really vicious. Other beasts would bite off the prey's throat in one bite and start eating after it had died. This bear chose to start eating from the feet, torturing the prey to collapse in fear and pain, and finally dying from excessive blood loss. Just like Leo now. His legs had been gnawed by the bear to the position of his knees. Both knees were a bloody mess. The dazzling red looked even more hideous under the light in the snow. The smell of blood in the wild could easily attract wild animals. Leaving Leo at the door was really not a good idea. Therefore, when Gary carried Leo and walked towards the wooden cabin, I didn't object. But deep down, I felt a vague uneasiness. Would that bear come back? No wonder in their past lives they didn't want to go out after entering the wooden cabin. It was indeed warm inside. Gary lit the fireplace. Stacy was bandaging Leo and Lynn's wounds. I cooked the food in my backpack into hot meals in the kitchen. In less than 5 minutes, everyone had cleaned their plates. After eating, I suggested strengthening the wooden cabin as much as possible. After all, bears are very vengeful animals. We scared it away with light and interrupted its eating. No one knows if it will come back. After listening, everyone thought it made sense. But after searching around in the room, we found that only 2 large solid wood wardrobes could be of use. The wooden cabin had 1 door and 2 windows, one in front and one at the back. We used these 2 wardrobes to block the door and the front window respectively. The window at the back could only be barely blocked by a standing sofa. Both wardrobes were filled with a lot of clothes and sundries. Since they were made of solid wood, it took the 3 of us a lot of effort to put them in place. After doing all this, we finally felt a little relieved. When the temperature inside the room had risen almost enough, we extinguished the fireplace. Gary took several large-sized glow sticks that he had just found in the room, and climbed up the chimney to fix the glow sticks on the roof. This way, even if the light was poor at night, the patrolling and rescue planes could see that there were people here. Lynn was sweet-tongued and good at coquetry. She had always been popular, and was always the center of attention wherever she went. Now seeing the 3 of us busy here and there, she didn't feel guilty at all for not being able to help. Instead, she felt neglected. Ouch. It's so cold. Serafina. It's really cold when you went up and turned off the fireplace just now. Light the fire quickly. Sure enough, after safely entering the room, Lynn felt that she no longer needed me. Her attitude completely changed. There was no trace of the previous caution. And Leo didn't know what he had talked about with Lynn. The 2 of them seemed to have completely forgotten that they had just calculated each other's lives. Leo chimed in. Yes. Lynn is still injured and can't stand the cold. Serafina. Quickly light the fire in the fireplace. There should be eggs and milk in this room, right? Tomorrow morning, make steamed egg custard for Lynn, and heat up some milk. Supplementing protein will help her recover faster. I was directly amused by their bossy attitudes. Serafina. What are you standing there for? Seeing that I didn't move, Lynn complained. By the way, next time you go up to the roof, directly climb up a ladder from outside the wooden house. Don't go through the chimney anymore. As soon as the fireplace was turned off, the room became extremely cold. You guys have a lot of physical activity, and don't feel the cold. But Leo and I are both injured. Lynn thought she was still as popular as before and delicately put forward various demands. Gary, who was mentioned, sneered. You feel cold just sitting in the room. Wouldn't I be cold climbing a ladder outside? Do you think you're a young lady? If you cause more trouble, I'll throw you out to feed the wolves. Seeing that her former dog was actually threatening her fiercely, Lynn immediately had 2 drops of tears in her eyes. Leo weakly held Lynn in his arms to comfort her, and at the same time reprimanded Gary. Gary, you're a man. Why are you being mean to a woman? It's just climbing a ladder and getting a little cold. It's not going to cost you your life. Don't let your brothers look down on you. I scoffed. You're a man. Then why don't you climb up? Or when you say, man, do you mean someone who is ambiguous with other girls in front of his girlfriend? Leo was choked by my words and embarrassed. Released Lynn with an awkward expression. Serafina. Since you already know, I won't hide some things from you anymore. There is indeed something between me and Lynn. I hope you can let go and help us fulfill us. But I also hope you won't make things difficult for Lynn because she is injured now, and has been your good friend for so many years. Leo's words seemed as if I was so reluctant to part with him, and was pestering him. I rolled my eyes in my heart. My life is not even guaranteed. Yet he still has time to think about these useless things. You hope for this and hope for that. Why don't you go to the temple and make a wish? And when Lynn seduced my boyfriend, she didn't remember that we were friends for so many years. Now she remembers? I tell you, I don't care if you two, this couple of adulterers, stay together or go and harm others. But don't bring your affairs to bother me. I don't have time. As I expected, it wasn't Leo who refuted me first. But Lin. Leo. What are you talking about? I've always had brotherly sisterly affection for you. How could you think of our relationship this way? Leo looked surprised. He overestimated his charm and Lin's character. I kindly reminded him. Leo. You've lost all the bones below your knees. Your appearance and income will be greatly reduced. Do you still think you're the handsome and promising doctor before and can attract my good best friend to be your mistress? My cruel words made Leo wake up like from a dream. He shook Lin's body unwillingly. Really? Lin? Is this really what you think? I love you so much. Yet you despise me. Seeing Lin hesitating without refuting, he became even angrier. I came here for you. If you hadn't been clamoring to go abroad, would we have encountered a plane crash? If it weren't for you delaying our journey, would my leg be like this? Lin's face turned pale from being shaken and finally couldn't help but push Leo away. Enough. Leo. It takes two to tango. Don't put all the blame on me alone. Didn't you also mess around with your girlfriend's best friend for the thrill? Don't act innocent here. As soon as I invited you to go abroad, you immediately booked a themed room with a waterbed for me. But for your own girlfriend, you booked an ordinary room. And you asked me to pretend in front of them that I accidentally booked the wrong one. By the plane. You were also the first to abandon me. Leo. Are you a man? Dare to do it but not dare to admit it. How dare you talk about me? Their fight was too intense. I originally wanted to watch the scene of dogs biting dogs for a while longer, and even recorded a video on the side. Gary stopped them, and said, "Stop arguing. Everyone's energy is limited. Don't be entangled over love at this time. In my opinion. Let's go to sleep first. No one can be sure if the bear will come again. So we definitely can't sleep together. I'll be in a group with Stacy. The three of you will be in a group. One group sleeps for 3 hours and then takes turns. What do you think?" Gary's words made sense. And none of us refuted. At a little past 1 in the morning, the snores of 3 people sounded in the room. Lin couldn't hold on for even half an hour and fell asleep. Now only I and Leo are still awake. Serafina. Leo suddenly called me in a nauseantly affectionate tone that I hadn't heard in a long time. Instantly, goosebumps covered both my arms. After what happened today, you must be very disappointed in me. Right? There was the same bitter smile on his face as the infatuated male sec and lead in idol dramas. Not really. I didn't have much hope for you anyway. Leo's smile froze on his face and he persisted. Serafina. I know I've hurt you. I don't expect your forgiveness. But I hope you can believe that I was just blinded by Lin before. Now I know that you are the one who is best to me. I really regret it. TSK. Leo finally realizes that he has no market anymore and wants to come back to me. This sucker. Leo. You don't have to regret it because I know everything you've done all this time. In Leo's hopeful eyes, I said firmly. It's all from your true heart. Because you are originally a scumbag. That's why you were seduced by Lin. So don't act in front of me anymore. I don't want what others don't want either. Leo's eyes wide and in surprise. For a long time, he seemed unable to believe that such heartless words came out of my mouth. I was a bit speechless. Outside the window, the night wind howled and danger lurked everywhere. I had to be fully alert to keep watch. But Leo was still thinking about how to find a backup. Just when I was about to roll up my sleeves and pinch myself again, I heard a dull knocking sound at the door. At first, I still prayed that I had misheard. But in less than 10 seconds, there was again a dong 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 sound on the door. I didn't think there was anyone else on the plane as lucky as us. Not only did they survive, but they also happened to find this wooden house. When I looked at Leo, his eyes were also full of horror. The one knocking at the door must be that bear. Just like in the legend, it's pretending. It's bewitching me to open the door. My palms began to sweat and my heart seemed to be tightly clutched by something. Who knew that after about 2 minutes, the knocking at the door didn't sound again. We were about to breathe a sigh of relief when we heard a dull knocking sound coming from the window behind the house. Not good. This bear is really cunning. It knows that the defense at the back is the weakest. The sofa in the wooden house is in a modern light luxury style. It only relies on throw pillows and cushions to hold the scene. The internal structure is supported by only a few pieces of wood and simply cannot withstand the attack of a bear. What should we do? It's about to come in. Leo's voice trembled. I looked up and said, there is only one way. After a fierce inner struggle, I still couldn't leave Gary and Stacy to die. Although my death in my previous life was also partly due to them. They were not the masterminds after all. I gently woke up Gary and Stacy, and repeatedly reminded them not to rashly make a sound and wake up Lynn. Otherwise, with Lynn's excitable personality, once she starts yelling, it will surely let the bear outside the door determine that there are people inside the house. And then it will no longer have any scruples and directly break down the door. Fortunately, she was sleeping deeply and wasn't woken up by this knocking sound. The sturdiness of the wooden house definitely can't stop this bear. There is only one place we can hide, which is the chimney. Gary said in a heavy tone. I have climbed this chimney. It is only 6 meters high and the size is a square with sides of several meters. And the roof can't hold people. We did a simple calculation and understood. In the end, we unanimously decided to abandon Lynn. After Gary picked up a kettle and poured water to extinguish the fireplace, the 4 of us quickly got in. Gary was on the top. I was second. Below was Stacy. And Leo, who couldn't climb, was of course at the bottom, because the fire had just been extinguished. The fireplace was very choking, especially in Leo's position, but he couldn't cough out loud and could only turn his face bright red. After all, it was better at the top. At his position, the bear could reach him. As soon as Leo got into the fireplace, there was the sound of wood shattering, and the roar of a black bear from outside the window. Immediately after was Lynn's scream. Lynn cried and said, "What's going on? Why are people all gone? Save me." Leo, Serafina, Stacy, Gary, where are you? Why didn't you call me? Are you hiding in the closet? Yes. You must be in the closet. You don't dare to go out. Go there. There are still people in the closet. Go and eat them. I couldn't help feeling a burst of relief in my heart. The height of the chimney can only accommodate 4 people. And the 3 of us healthy people must each occupy a position. So there is only room for 1 person between Leo and Lynn. I know their natures well. Once Lynn is woken up and one of Leo and Lynn is chosen to enter the chimney, no matter who is chosen, the other will betray our location. So I directly proposed not to wake up Lynn. Everyone had no objections. Moreover, if she could keep watch as agreed, she wouldn't be left behind. Inside the house, Lynn's crying gradually decreased from loud to small, from panic to despair. Leo had experienced that feeling. Hearing Lynn's voice, he was so scared that he wet his pants. About 5 hours later, it was already dawn. The 4 of us had been in the chimney for so long that our legs had become stiff. Gary on the top was so frozen that he couldn't stand it and kept making a fuss about going down and going back into the house. Leo at the bottom was unwilling. If the bear hadn't left yet, he would be the first to die. Fortunately, the sound of a helicopter propeller came from the sky. We excitedly shouted loudly. Gary reached up a bit more and waved his arms wildly, finally making the people on the plane notice us. The captain of the rescue team, Connor, is the person who heard Leo and Lynn talking in the previous life. He stared at me for a long time. When he saw me, this strange behavior gave me a bold guess. Sure enough, on the night of our engagement a year later, Connor told me that he had also been reborn. Shortly after my death in my previous life, he sacrificed himself in a rescue mission. The reason was that when rescuing several fare-evading hikers trapped in the mountains, Connor, who was walking at the front and providing lighting, was pushed by a hiker who was in a hurry to go home. Connor rolled down the mountain, and at a young age made his parents lose their only son. This time around, he could have directly withdrawn from that team, but he was afraid of implicating his teammates. Therefore, only after personally going through this calamity did he start to pursue me. After being rescued, Leo went crazy. Coupled with inhaling too many toxic particles in the chimney, his brain also became a bit dull. I heard that when he was in the hospital, he kept muttering, "It's not like this. We shouldn't be like this. My leg will be fine. Lynn won't die. Serafino will die. I will become famous. Everyone will know that I am a survivor who protects others." How could this be? How could this be? I know Leo has also come back. Unfortunately, no one is willing to understand the words of a madman. We several survivors were compensated a total of 10 million yuan for physical and mental damages by the airline company. At the same time, we made a lot of money by accepting various interviews. And because of this unfortunate experience, the leaders and colleagues at my work unit were afraid that I would have psychological problems, and gave me many preferential treatments at work. A long time later, I still feel extremely fortunate for my choice back then.